Hello again, everyone. I hope you're staying safe and well, and I ask the Lord to continue to bless you and your families. The other day, I was thinking about the fact that something like we're going through now is a real source of anxiety and stress for many of us. At any given time in this country, anxiety is a real issue for millions of people. I read someplace that at any given moment, 40 million people in the United States suffer from some kind of anxiety syndrome. And certainly that must be increased in many different ways during times like this. And we stress out and we worry about all kinds of things, and sometimes with good reason. We worry about our health, we worry about our jobs, we worry about the welfare of our families, especially if we see somebody having particular kinds of problems. We worry about the state of the world. Where's it all going? So there probably are many things that are legitimate sources of anxiety for us and stress. The question is, what do we do with those anxieties? What do we do with those stresses? How do we try to control them? How do we try to resolve them, maybe? Unfortunately, some people turn to alcohol. Some people turn to drugs. I read just last week that during this pandemic, alcohol sales in this country are up 200%. Well, imagine that. People drinking twice as much, 3 times as much as they normally would. Some of them probably just to relax and try to forget what's going on. Other people try other things. They try meditation, they try yoga, they try exercise, and all of those, with the exception of the alcohol or drugs, is a good way to try to relieve some forms of stress. But I read someplace recently that many psychologists today are discovering something that the church has known for many, many centuries. And that is one of the greatest releases of anxiety and stress is to develop a legitimate sense of gratitude, a legitimate sense of thanksgiving. Now, we all know people who are Pollyannas. Nothing is ever wrong, everything is wonderful. I remember some years ago being in a parish where there was a lady, wonderful, very faith-filled lady, who saw good in everything. I remember one time, it was probably in April or late March or early April, and everybody was ready for spring, and the buds were just coming out on the trees. We had an unanticipated blizzard, 9 inches of snow gathering outside. And I was there for daily mass. We hadn't called off the daily mass, and so a few hardy souls showed up. Among them, this lady. And she walked in with this huge smile on her face, and she looked at me and said, "Isn't God wonderful?" I felt like throttling her, grabbing her by the throat and throttling her, because I didn't think this was terribly wonderful at that point. But see, she probably honestly saw beauty in it, honestly saw, when it melted, some wonderful runoff for the crops and for the rivers, but whatever. There are people who sometimes see good, perhaps when most of us don't see it. But I'm not talking about that kind of attitude. I'm talking about honestly looking at the blessings that are ours, even in the midst of difficulty. I mean, for example, there are people lying in the hospital right now, hopefully recovering from COVID, and as much as they may be suffering, can't they be thankful for the nurses and the doctors who are taking care of them, who are risking themselves to take care of them? There's something to be thankful for there, even in the midst of that, all the anxiety and stress they must be feeling. There are some people who are wondering and worrying about, will they have a job to go back to? They've been furloughed or laid off, and will there be a job? And they're worried about all that means. It's certainly a legitimate source of anxiety. But even in the midst of that, if they're healthy, if they have their health, if they have talents that God has given them, isn't there something to be thankful for there, that at some point they'll be able to find another job, even if they lose the one that they have? So I think it's a good time for us to really try, in all times, but maybe now even more, to develop this attitude of gratitude, that we really understand and reflect on the blessings that are ours all the time, even in the midst of difficult circumstances. so many people who love us and care for us, so many material goods that are still ours, even though maybe in diminished quantity or diminished availability. A spring, an earth that continues to produce beautiful things for us. There are still so many things always to be thankful for. So, and if we really have that attitude of gratitude, and we really, not just superficially, but sincerely are a grateful, thankful people, we may find that our anxieties and our stresses are much less than they would be otherwise. I sometimes wonder, in the most lost of all circumstances, Jesus on the cross, what could be more forlorn, more horrible than that, more hopeless than that? And yet even there, could he not look down and see Mary and John and a few of the other women who accompanied him even that far, and have thankfulness for their love and for their presence for him? And so for us, in the midst of all of this, let's ask the Lord for the grace to see the blessings that are always part of our lives. Even in the midst of other difficulties, there are always blessings. Let's ask God for the grace to develop gratitude, because only gratitude ultimately provides us with a life force, a life attitude, a life vision. Only gratitude ultimately is the answer to many of the problems of our lives. So continue to be well this week, and let's continue to pray for one another. May God bless you.